This mission trip for me was serenity.
This trip was absolutely life-changing.
The one word is relationships.
It grew my heart.
It really shifts your perspective.
The most amazing opportunity.
If I could describe this trip in one word, it would be hope. Hope was built here.
You know, we're gonna keep that in the heart for a long time, you know.
Put your troubles aside and just do what's best for others.
I thought that I understood God's grace for His children. Now I've seen it firsthand.
Shortly after joining Shook, I had the pleasure to do the communications for the Mozambique mission trip. And just working with John and the team when they came back, as we did the documentary, and John kind of pulled me aside and said, I think you'd be a great leader for the next one. And, would you be interested? And I said, absolutely. And, after that point, there were a lot of questions. Where do we go? How do we find an organization? When we interviewed Grow, it was just different. Their passion exuded so much. The first time we met with Fa and Gina. And Fa is the founder and the country director of Thailand, where Gina is the executive director here in the US. And you could just see the desire in their heart for us to come, the depth that they cared about the children at the mission and what they did. And it was about rescuing children, and it was a building to rescue more children from heartbreaking situations.
GROW, Grace Refuge Outreach Worldwide, is an organization that's based out in Thailand.
That basically takes in children that are at risk, whether that's abuse or prostitution, drugs, or they also come from very poor families.
Call it the hills, call it the mountains, whatever you want to call it. It is literally up in the mountains.
Those in the tribes aren't recognized by the government, and so they have no papers.
These are truly, truly third world areas. These people aren't even considered Thai people.
The way they say it, they take the kids that no one else wants, kids from the worst situations and the most difficult places.
They have every reason in the world to keep their boundaries up, and they welcomed us with open arms.
Well, I'm here to tell you, I don't think I've fallen in love with 28 kids that quick.
A couple of years ago, we had the mission trip over to Mozambique, and we saw the whole premiere and the video on that. That really inspired me. I wanted to get more involved.
I joined Shook in 2019 as a co-op, and one of the recruiting tools that got me here was mission trip opportunities.
It's a good experience. You learn a lot of stuff, different cultures, how people live in other countries. That was pretty good.
Little did I know the journey that had started on that day when I received the call saying, hey, congratulations.
Thailand, as we started looking into flights and different things, it's 12 hours ahead of us. It's all the way around the world. And, it was a long journey to get there. We had a flight to Minneapolis, a 14-and-a-half-hour flight to Seoul, South Korea, another 6-hour flight to Chiang Mai. The first day we did our cultural orientation, we got to see a little of the city. But after the orientation, we got in the truck, in the cars, and we drove to Grow's campus, which is about 2 hours from Chiang Mai. And as we drove, the city faded into the country, and you started to see the rice fields and the workers in the rice fields where everything was hand planted. And you started to see the mountains, and really started to get that feeling of, I'm in the jungle.
When we woke up the first day in Thailand, we did about a 3-4 hour cultural training.
I think that cultural training set the tone for the trip.
We had been there for 8 hours at the time, and we haven't even made it up to Grow yet. And while we were getting our cultural training, Fa got a call.
And Carol, who was teaching us, we came back from the break, and she said, I need to tell you guys the phone call that Fa received while we were on break from the government. And the government had contacted her because there was 3 little girls that needed a place to go. And the government further explained that their brother had killed their father with a hoe. The mother was distraught, couldn't take care of the children, and the grandmother didn't know what to do, so she was prepared to feed them poison and herself because they had no income and really nothing on the horizon.
So while we were there, while we were getting trained, this phone call's going on literally outside the door.
And Fa had to say no to taking in the kids because they didn't have enough room for girls. Their girls' home is full.
And makes it real.
Did they find a home for those kids? Are they okay? Did they find someone to love them?
The immediate thought that went through my mind was, we need to hurry up with the cultural training. We need to go to work. The goal was to help build an additional dormitory for young girls. The campus had maxed out.
What we had been told was that we were going to help the local contractor to put up brick wall. I don't know Thai, I don't know the language. How am I going to communicate? Very quickly in that first day, Salanum, the superintendent, he and I had figured out a manner of pointing to tape measure, grunts, head nods.
We got some good work done. It was a bit frustrating at first. I'm not a mason by any means, and you could definitely tell on my first wall there, that one had to get ripped out. I probably worked on that wall for a good 4 hours, and the foreman came by who didn't necessarily speak English, but he said no. And it was leaning inwards a bit, and I got to tear it out myself personally. So yes, that was a bit frustrating, but and it took down the confidence a little bit, but I quickly learned from my mistakes, and the improvement started to come.
We came through, and little setbacks here and there were minuscule on the grand scheme of things.
And then there were a number of other projects that we did. They have a water cooler that the children use. That cooler had been out of service. We had it fixed and was able to get them filtered water, save them a bunch of money because they were buying bottled water, etc.
That water meant so much to them.
In addition to that, there was a drain line that was just pouring out onto the campus where the kids were walking.
They had a back patio, and the sink drain just pours out, and there's a big puddle of kitchen waste there.
The real challenge was that we had to tie into their existing pipe, which was not like a PVC pipe that we use. It was actually a concrete pipe.
One of the things that we had saw the very first day that kind of stuck with us all week was that there's this trail that goes down to the river.
Pretty steep hill there, and it can be pretty treacherous for them.
But Fa likes to go there for her devotions, and they like to take the kids there to kind of explore, be kids in the woods, but also play, swim in the river. And not all the kids can make it down or back up.
Because we walked down to the river and we were slipping and falling, and we're like, how do the kids do this every day?
There wasn't even a sheet of plywood or 2x4s within 2 hours, so we had to look to our natural environment.
One of our guys watched a YouTube video and said, hey, here's how to make a handrail out of bamboo.
As all of us DIYers do, looked up a YouTube video of how to build a stairway out of bamboo, and we got to work the next day on it. I definitely felt like it wouldn't have worked if Luis Guerra wasn't there.
So we have to use machete, and do our best we can. We're not tools, though. I know William started doing, then I jumped out because he's taking too long.
He knew how to work with those materials like a local did. It felt really good to contribute with an original idea there and to leave a lasting mark.
Every one of those side projects we did meant as much to them as the big project we went there to do.
You're working 8-9 hours a day. You're tired at the end of it. You've been in the sun all day. You've been lifting bricks or roof tiles, whatever it is. Your shoulders are tired.
After work, we're kind of tired, but we have a little bit of energy, left to play with and like play games.
You see those kids get home from school around 4 o'clock. All of a sudden, you have another jolt of energy to play for a couple hours.
We'd always start the time off with sports. So we'd go play, soccer, volleyball, basketball.
Some of the boys are running around barefoot on like rocks and hard dirt. And they're running circles around me, and I'm in like hiking shoes with some grip on it.
Thumb wars, oh my gosh. I don't think I've seen Alex do more thumb wars.
I guess thumb wars are just a barrier-breaking game.
Then they said it's time for the Thai game. And we were a little confused what was going on. But there were like 6 stations set up.
You start kneeling by a bowl, and you dunk your head in that bowl of water.
And then you had to run to the next station where they all had paper plates, where on the paper plate was flour, and there was a coin in it. And you had to dig with your face through the flour to get to the coin and then spit it out. And so because of the water, your face is just covered in flour.
And then you get to the coin that you uncovered by blowing, take that out, put it on the ground.
The next 3 steps were all food. So I think there was Jell-O, there were sugar cookies, there was a whole donut, there was a whole orange, and you had to eat all of the food to move to the next station.
And jump on a balloon to finish your relay.
These kids were champions at it. And as our team did it, I thought they were gonna be sick. We'd like to bring that game back to Shook and watch some of our other employees do that.
A lot of the kids, they're self-taught from YouTube or whatever it is. They've picked up guitar, piano, the drums. They can sing, and they do every Sunday. They have their service, their worship service, and they lead their couple songs of worship in the beginning of the service.
During the whole week, Nate and I were able to practice with some of the leaders at Grow, the female leaders there.
So their services they have, the kids pretty much, from what I could tell, they lead it, they put it on. And they're doing dances up there, they're singing, and 3-4 of the kids usually would share their testimony, where they came from, which is pretty hard to hear usually.
In church, each of these kids just had so much courage. They got up and they shared their testimonies and they shared their stories.
Previous mission trip in Mozambique, we saw in the video that John Cleveland, Matt Hulsman, Dan Wolking, all those guys, they were able to sing. I don't know, were able to, or were kind of voluntold to sing Amazing Grace to all the kids. So going off that, I had this amazing idea. I was talking to William about it. Hey, last Sunday service, let's lead a song for all these kids.
Nate and I playing our instruments, and the rest of the team using their beautiful voices to serenade everybody in that church hall. It was great.
One big thing we wanted to add to this mission trip was how to make sure people at Shook, people aren't going on the trip, could be involved. So we took 10 bags worth of stuff donated from Shook people and friends of Shook, and we made a list. We had the kids make lists of things they wanted. And my favorite part there is they didn't know. They've never been asked, hey, what do you want? It's always what do they actually need, and that's what they get. We had 10 50-pound bags, some over 50 pounds, full of stuff for these kids, and it spent probably a couple hours going through it and figuring out what we actually had and making sure every kid was going to get something. So we ended up packing 28 bags and assigning a name to each one with the help of the Grow staff, and didn't know how it was going to go. So we walked down to a family night.
So we were all in a circle around the fire, and one by one we called out each name.
Their hands are grabbing onto the bottom of their chairs, their legs are pumping up and down.
It was Price is Right. I mean, their name was called, and they were up and dancing, and the swagger that 5-year-old girl has, walking out and receiving her bag, not knowing what's in it, not caring about what color it was.
I would have never thought a toothbrush could excite a kid, but they were like literally like holding it like, yes, yes.
It just, exploded in their hearts, and it exploded out to the whole group, and it was every kid. The boys were wearing their soccer balls on their heads, and the girls were dancing around and, putting on watches and bracelets, and then they asked them, they said, how many of you was this the first gift you've ever got? And nearly every hand went up. So for those kids to just receive something and know that somebody in the world, loves them enough to give them a hat. And the next 2-3 days that we were there, somebody was wearing it every time, if not all of them.
It's very cute knowing that like our gifts made such a huge impact on them, but also like that experience had an impact on like each of us.
I really wish you could have seen the smile on those kids' faces.
Hearing what these children have gone through and how they carry themselves, it makes me look almost silly in my day-to-day. I mean, I feel like I get caught up in so much that is minuscule in the grand scheme of things.
Your problems don't seem so significant when you hear about, like, the lives that these kids have lived.
To hear a child give thanks for the smallest things, the things that you and I would never, ever think of. We thank God for the bigger things. I went back in time. It was cool. I mean, it really, truly was.
To see the hope that they have, no matter where they're from and what's been done to them and what they've experienced, there was such an innocent joy and love in their eyes as true children.
It was not so much looking back at the end of the day and say, oh, yep, we took 6 walls to bond beam. Or, yep, we took 4 walls to bond beam and we topped out 2 upper sections. But the excitement that I had for those kids to get off the bus, it drove me. I said it earlier, I fell in love with 28 kids and I can't wait to go back.
This trip has taught me to, really just be mindful of what I'm getting hung up on and try to compare myself to, what others are living through, and just very thankful that there are people out there that embark in this.
The mission was about the building, but the kids are that building. Man, it's tough. I mean, gee, man, Christmas. There wasn't a dry eye, and I'm just emotionally devastated. And that was the feeling that I had when we left on Sunday, because I knew I was leaving a piece of my heart there. And the bad thing was, it was a piece of my heart that I didn't know existed.
Daniel